Hi everyone, it's Jenny and I am back with another video. I am starting this video outside today, so if it's noisy, have fun, I guess. So today you're going to be watching my 24 in 72 kinda hour readathon vlog. This was inspired somewhat by Lindsay at Lindsay's Bookish Life. I believe it's her channel name. I will link her down below, as well as Doris from Aldi Books, who I also linked down below. Both did last weekend a 24 and 72 hour reading vlog where they tried to read for a total of 24 hours over a 72 hour period, i.e. 3 days. And so I'm going to attempt something similar, but with a specific twist, because I have recently gotten into Netgalley, which is a website where you can request advanced reader's copies of books, so like ebooks, and then review them both on Netgalley as well as publish those reviews elsewhere. I made an account back in 2017 or something when I first heard about it, but at that time I was like, well, I don't really review books for a public audience, so I'm not going to get approved for any of them. But then this past weekend I saw that Echo Publishing, which is an imprint of Harper Collins, one of my fave publishers, was auto-approving Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, which is a summer release. It comes out on June 2nd that I was really anticipating, and since they were auto-approving it, I was like, well, let me revamp my Netgalley and I will get an early copy of this. So that then sent me down a whole rabbit hole of Netgalley where I requested 15 or 16 books, which was a mistake, and I've actually now been approved for 4 of them. So this video is going to be me reading those 4 books. They're all under 300 pages, so it should be a pretty quick reads, all of them. Those 4 books over the course of this weekend. So that's kind of my main plan for the weekend, is to read these 4 books. So I thought first I would tell you about the 4 books and kind of why I requested them, and then next we'll check in when I've made some more progress in each of them. So to start off, first we have Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, and I requested this one because it's been blurbed as Crazy Rotations meets Sally Rooney, which are both things that I love, so I was like, I will love this. And it follows a young woman named Ava who has just graduated from undergrad in Dublin, or university, I guess as they call it in the UK. And she has decided to take her emergency fund, which she lovingly calls her abortion fund, to travel and move to Hong Kong and begin teaching English there. So there she teaches English. She also meets a banker, an English banker named Julian, who she starts a kind of tumultuous relationship with, and I believe has a second love interest that comes in, whose name is Edith, who is a Hong Kong-born lawyer. So they have a relationship as well, and I believe Ava goes through some, challenging times. So that's the first one. The next one I have is Feminist City by Kern, and this is a nonfiction book published by Verso that is basically about, it's more of somewhat of an academic text about basically the creation of urban spaces, and kind of the gender geographies that are created therein in terms of how urban planning works, and how women interact with cities and urban places in different ways than potentially cis men do. So there's that one, and I requested that one because I actually am planning on applying to grad school in urban planning this coming fall. So it's something that very much interests me, especially designing cities in ways that are kind of equitable and really usable for people of all sorts of different walks of life. So that is the next one that I requested and was approved for. Then the third one is called A Song Below Water by Bethany Seymour. This is published by Torteen. Oh, and the first 2, actually all 3 of these, are out June 2nd. As of me filming this, it's the 1st of May right now. And as of me filming this, these are all scheduled to come out on the 2nd of June. And Bethany Seymour's Song Below Water is a YA fantasy about a girl who's living in Portland, Oregon, who is a siren. The women of her family have been sirens for generations, and she is living in present day Oregon, and I believe there's kind of some exploration of racism, sexism, current politics I think is also a buzzword that I saw in the blurb, and so I'm excited about this one. I requested it because it sounded intriguing. I'm always looking for diverse fantasies, and this one sounded good, so that's why I requested it. And then the last one is called The Lightness by Emily Temple, and this one is out the 16th of June, and this is a coming of age story that's been marketed for fans of like Donna Tartt and Emma Cline and Natasha Moshfegh. I've not read Moshfegh, but I have read the other two, and really like both of them. And I also just love like coming of age stories. Apparently there's kind of some fraught female friendships, which is also something I really enjoy reading about. So all of those were like buzzwords for me. I'd not heard of that one, The Lightness, before. I saw it on Netgalley, but I decided to request it, and I got approved for it. So those are the 4 books I'm reading. I am actually in the middle of both Exciting Times and Feminist City, but I will talk about those ones right now is when I'm going to talk about them. So it's actually been several hours since I last updated you. This first day of the readathon is not going that great, but I just posted my April part 2 wrap up, so go check that out if you have not watched it. Also, don't mind all my like very silly things, including my One Direction poster. Love that for me. These are posters that I had. Actually, I don't really have that much of an excuse. This is like not my childhood bedroom, but you know, it's fine. I love One Direction. What can I say? So let me tell you about Exciting Times and Feminist City, and then kind of my reading plans for the rest of the day. It's like 4 o'clock now, and I'm probably not going to read a ton today. It is Friday, and you know, my family likes to do like activities together, so we'll probably do something this evening. But I have several hours until I'm gonna make dinner. But let me tell you about those 2 books, my plans for the next like couple hours, and then we'll move on from there. So I am partway through Exciting Times and Feminist City, and I'm 33% of the way through Exciting Times, so I just got to part 2, which is the start of Edith's story, and so far I'm absolutely loving this. It is so funny. As I said in my previous clip, it's like very witty. I think it's even funnier than Sally Rooney. From what I remember of Sally Rooney, she's not like the funniest person, but Nisha Dolan is hilarious. Like there have been several moments where I've like chuckled to myself, which is very rare for a book to be able to make me do. I've been really enjoying it, and I don't know, it's very interesting. I think, so Ava and Julian have this very interesting relationship. I think I really enjoy how Nisha Dolan has written it, in that Julian's not a like bad person. He just like is not interested in a relationship, like a monogamous, really like intensely loving relationship with Ava, and I don't think Ava really wants that either. They're just kind of like 2 people that happen to be living together, because Ava doesn't have a like apartment in Hong Kong anymore. She was like living in a long-term Airbnb, and has since just like moved in with Julian, and so they're like staying in this apartment, but they both have separate rooms, it sounds like, but they're like having sex, but they're not like in a relationship, and I think that's a really interesting like kind of commentary that Dolan is making on like, you know, millennials. So I'm really enjoying that. Excited to meet Edith. I'm about to meet her when I get into it. And yeah, I mean, I think this will probably be 5 stars. I'm really having a great time with it. Would highly recommend it thus far. Nothing wrong with it as of yet. Also, I wanted to point out, I've been wearing like braid pigtails almost every day during quarantine. It's just like my quarantine uniform, I guess. But anyway, so I think for Feminist City, I am kind of wanting it to be more of a kind of the application side of urban planning, as opposed to the like theory, academic geography side of urban planning. But that's just not what Leslie Kern is. She is not like an urban planner by trade. She is an academic geographer, like feminist geographer. So she's writing from this perspective of like a theory-based, literature review-based book. And so like if that's what you're looking for with Feminist City, I think it's a really great read. Like it's very thought-provoking. There's a lot of interesting stuff here, but it's not as much of the like quantitative data or like case studies of cities that have kind of used a gendered approach to urban planning. There is a little bit of that. She talked in the last chapter I read about like snow plows in Stockholm and how they actually in Stockholm started to plow the streets based on like the paths that women take in the morning, i.e. like usually in most cities it sounds like snow plows like start in the urban center and then move outward, so like residential areas are the last to be plowed, when like if you think about it, women have to, or you know, parents in general have to take their children to their daycare or their school before work begins. So it doesn't make sense for the work oriented area of a city to be the first to be plowed if it's like the last place that people go during the day. So that was very interesting. And that was like kind of more of the case study stuff I was looking for, but it's very theory based, which just like throughout my undergrad degree, theory was what I cared the least about. And it reads very academic. It's intriguing because it's like academic, but it's also not. Like, she will name drop people as is like common in academic writing, but then she will define a word like gentrification. And you're like, if you are an academic person reading this book, you should know what gentrification means. But if you are like a complete novice to the subject, I think it's written in such a way that it's not super accessible. So it's a meh. It's fine right now, but it's not exactly what I was looking for. I was looking kind of more for like a Palaces for the People by Eric Klingenberg, and he's actually also an academic. He's a sociologist, I think, at the UW-Madison. But this one was a lot more like case study application based, and more kind of hobby urban planning than like this more academic side. Or you got, the OG Jane Jacobs. But this is also theory based, but there's like, palpable solution-based stuff that Jane Jacobs, like, talks about that cities could change, which there's been less of that a bit in Feminist City. But I'm, like, 30% of the way through the ebook, although the ebook ends and the, like, notes index section begins at, like, 83%. So I'm even further along. But yeah, so I will chug along in those two. I think right now, though, my plan is to... It's exactly 4 o'clock. Wow. My plan is to take the next hour and read 30 minutes of the other two. So A Song Below Water and The Lightness. Read like for 30 minutes in each of those and then continue on. I actually probably will read just for the next 2 hours and do 30 minutes in each of them. And then check back in around dinner time. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, in the last clip, I said... when I was describing exciting times, that Ava goes through challenging times, and that was, like, such a missed opportunity to say the name of the book, and I don't know why I didn't take that. Hello, everyone. It's been several hours now since I last updated you, but I have been reading. So it's close to 8 o'clock. I paused to make dinner. I made this, like, zucchini lemon orzo. It was really good. Made it from the Love and Lemons website. She has some really good recipes that I would highly recommend. There are a lot of like vegetarian, vegan stuff too. But I have been reading, so let's see. I read between when I updated you and now, which has been 4 hours, but I've only read for an hour and 16, or I guess like 17 minutes. I'm keeping like a track on my computer. And I've gotten to about like 16% of both A Song Below Water and The Lightness by Emily Temple. And both of these I'm like really, really enjoying already. So A Song Below Water is, as I said before, like a YA fantasy. It's set in our world, but it sounds like it's kind of an alternate our world because there are magical creatures and everyone is aware of that, it sounds like. But sirens, which is what our main character, or one of our main characters, Tavia, are very rare, and they're almost exclusively Black women. So there's a really interesting kind of commentary through the siren aspect on like Black women's silence and Black women activism and stuff, which I'm hoping will be, and I assume will be, explored more. So I'm really enjoying that one. And then there's also this kind of other mystery, it sounds like, with her best friend who's now living with her family, whose name is Effie, and something with Mirage happened with her. I'm not entirely sure what her plot line is, but intrigued to carry on for sure. And then The Lightness I'm also really enjoying. It's like just the kind of like coming of age story that I love. In my build a book tag, which I've already filmed but I haven't posted yet, I talked about how I love books that the narrator is talking about a book after the events, like much later than the events have happened, and kind of is reflecting back. And that's the narrative style being used in The Lightness, and I'm really enjoying it. So it's about a young girl whose name is Olivia, who has gone to this kind of like, it sounds like a white hippie type Buddhist retreat center up in the mountains to try to figure out what happened to her dad, who disappeared about a year ago. He kind of just like left town, and he's always been going to these like Buddhist meditation centers, but this is the first time that he's like not come back from one. So she's investigating that, and in the meantime she's also in this like summer rehabilitation kind of wellness retreat that's for teenage girls. So there's some other girls that kind of have some stuff happening in their lives, including these 3 girls that are, like, the girls that Olivia's not supposed to kind of be involved with because they're bad news, and obviously she's going to be involved with them. So I'm intrigued about both of these. I think I have about 3 hours left of both of them, so I'm going to make some good progress. As I said, it's like 8 o'clock now. I usually start getting around bed around like 10, so I really think I'm going to have the next like 2 hours actually to read, so I'm going to cycle through them again for 30 minutes each, and then maybe do one more check-in before the night is done. Hi everyone, it's Saturday now. It's Saturday afternoon. I think it's around 1 o'clock. So I did some more reading last night before I went to bed, but I didn't time it because I don't like to look at my phone in like the last hour or so before I go to bed. So I don't know how much reading I did. I read a chapter in each of the 4 books. And then this morning I did some more reading, ate some breakfast, some avocado toast, was delish, and then did some yoga with Adrian, my little sister, and I started like in mid-March, like right at the beginning of quarantine, self-isolation, Adrian's 30-day 2020 yoga challenge, and since then we've just been doing yoga. It seems like just about everyone else here in booktube and like in the world is also doing yoga, but it's been great. We love it. And right now I'm just sitting outside in my backyard area reading. So I wanted to check in just about like the progress that I've made in each of my 4 books. So the one I was just reading was The Lightness by Emily Temple, and this one I'm 29% of the way through, and it's really good. It's reminding me a lot of The Girls, which I read last summer for my IRL, but also not really because we talk on Google Hangout, because we're all in different places, but my, like, 3 of my best friends from college and I do a book club, and we read The Girls last summer. And The Lightness has very similar vibes to The Girls, but I'm liking this one, I think, better than I like The Girls. Then I'm 19% of the way through A Song Below Water, so that's the one that I'm going to try to focus on today, because I want to get more balanced in terms of how far along I am in each of them. So 19% of the way through that. Then officially over halfway done with Exciting Times. I'm 52% of the way through. Really enjoying this one as well. This one I probably will finish first. I think I have like less than 2 hours. I love that Kindle tells you how long you have left. So that one's going to be pretty quick. And then I am 44% of the way through Feminist City. So I think my plan right now is to read the ones that I'm like the lowest on in terms of progress. So A Song Below Water and The Lightness, to kind of catch them up towards Feminist City and Exciting Times. And we'll check back in with you sometime. I don't know. We'll see when I next check in. Hi friends, it's Sunday now. I believe this is the first time I've updated you since yesterday around 1. Like yesterday early afternoon. And it's even later on Sunday afternoon. Now it's like 3 o'clock. I had a very leisurely morning. I made a Dutch baby, which was delicious. I did yoga, talked to a friend, one of my besties who's in Minnesota right now with her family. And then I also finished the first of my 4 books, which is exciting. And I also made progress in the other 3. I will tell you where I'm at percentage-wise at the end of this review clip. So I finished Feminist City by Leslie Kern. I'll put the picture up here. And this review is going to get a little like metaphysical, philosophical, opening the big questions can of worms here, because I had a lot of thoughts about this one. It was very thought-provoking. I even reached out to one of my very smart friends who is doing a grad program at Harvard Divinity School, so she's very smart, about like this kind of topic, because it made me think about something that I've thought about in the past, but this just like brought it back to the forefront of my mind. But first, let me just tell you about Feminist City. So Feminist City is a nonfiction book published by Verso, set to release on June 2nd. Hello, long time no see. Actually, it is now set to publish on the 7th of July. They've pushed it back according to NetGalley, and as of May 4th. That basically describes how marginalized people, particularly women, but also other groups, trans people, people of color, anyone with kind of intersecting marginalized identities especially, is kind of talked about in this book. Disabled people, etc., etc. Basically how those people interact with urban spaces, and also how urban spaces are created to continue to oppress and marginalize these people. So I thought it was really interesting. As I said, I believe in a previous clip, I am planning on going to grad school for urban planning in like fall of 2021, applying this coming fall. And so for that reason, I was very interested in reading this. I wanted to see Leslie Kern's take on what feminist urban planning looks like. And I think she does a great job taking the academic perspective and providing great detailed analysis of how all of these intersecting identities, as well as key issues such as homelessness, public bathrooms was something she talked about extensively, kind of safety within cities, how all of these issues are compiled and exacerbated through different aspects of urbanization and urbanism. So I found it to be a really thought-provoking and well-written book. The particular advanced copy of the ebook that I had was not well formatted, but I tried to kind of ignore that and focus more on the content. And so that was all like really good. However, and this kind of ties more into a broader discussion that I don't think is necessarily Leslie Kern's fault, and is instead kind of the fault of the academic canon more broadly, is just this question of what is the purpose of academia when it relates to kind of everyday life, and who is kind of been tasked with making these everyday social systems more equitable, more just, more feminist, etc. So, for example, I think this is especially pertinent within education, because K through 12 public education in particular, because there's a whole side of academia that is focused on educational pedagogy, issues of social issues within education, but then you have teachers who are dealing with education day in and day out and have to literally come up with solutions of how every single day of like, how are we going to educate these kids right now? And I think you also see this in other disciplines that are kind of studied in social sciences. You see it like in criminal justice and the like kind of legal system more broadly here in America as well as elsewhere. I believe you see it in the healthcare system. I'm not as familiar with the healthcare system. You see it in terms of politics, so politics is like a whole other can of worms. You see it in like environmentalism, environmental policy, and you see it in urban planning, as you see here, which is that academics are providing this really nuanced, interesting critique of like what are the larger systems of oppression that are at play, that are making this particular discipline, this particular profession, not as good as it could be. But then the academics are often, and I remember actually having a conversation with one of my professors. I can't remember who it was. I really wish I could. But it was either one of my environmental anthropology professors or an environmental history professor of like whether academia is tasked with doing what I'm about to tell you. But that was a very interesting discussion. But basically, I'm unsure of who is supposed to take the nuanced critiques of these larger systems of oppression and how they affect these aspects of our society, and then apply them, create solutions that will actually make these things better within that system, if that makes any sense. I really don't know if this is going to make any sense. I'm still very much grappling it with myself. But because I think it's challenging, and this is where this book really fell into those tropes of like, this book is so excellent at showing all the ways that like intersectionality and all of the ways that marginalized people are negatively impacted by how cities are created, and goes as far as critique certain urban planning kind of mechanisms, etc., but then does not provide anyone who is actually an urban planner who's dealing with kind of the functionality of a municipality, any solutions for how to kind of work towards a more equitable future, aside from activism, which activism is a whole other can of worms, really. There was not really that much like policy-based, design-based, any kind of solutions. And I think that's what really frustrates me about academia is it academia that's supposed to provide those solutions? Is it people in like applied graduate programs that are semi-academics, the ones that are supposed to provide the solutions? Or is it people that are working a 9-to-5 job, the task to provide those solutions? I really don't know. I'm very intrigued. I would love to know. It's really my life's work is try to figure that out. But I think right now that does really frustrate me, because I want to see these academics that have such a wealth of knowledge of these systems, like helping the profession to provide solutions for how to make it better. And I think you do see that some in the education world, but so far nothing has really worked. But it was just interesting to see this in a field that I think of as being a very kind of progressively minded, creative, forward-thinking field of urban planning, to see it being critiqued. Like, especially, she critiques Jane Jacobs in this, which it's just kind of funny to me that, from my understanding, like, the urban planning profession and, like, world is still, like, reeling from kind of Jane Jacobs, like, solutions and ideas about how urban planning should work, that to then have someone critique Jane Jacobs is, like, where do we even start? So that's kind of how I'm feeling about Feminist City. I think on Netgalley, I'm gonna give it a 4 stars, but, like, it's a 3.5, 4 stars. I mean, it's very thought-provoking, and it's very well written, and it is a great, like, guide to how kind of intersectional feminism and urbanism are entangled together. So there's, like, truly nothing wrong with it as, like, an academic text. It's just this broader question of, like, who brings the solutions that is making me knock it down a star. So those are my thoughts. If you have any thoughts about this whatsoever, if this is something you've ever thought of, please leave your comments in the section down below so we can have a conversation about this, because it's something that fascinates me, and it's something that I think academia needs to reckon with before, you know, too long, because otherwise nothing's gonna happen. Okay, so I'm also gonna talk about the other 3 books, so I'm making some progress in all of them. I'm enjoying all of them quite a bit. I think they will lend themselves less to big philosophical discussions, but, you know, honestly, who knows? Sometimes I get really deep with my reading, as you have just seen. Okay, so I'm 59% of the way through the Lightness. I was also reading this one this morning. It's pretty good. There's definitely some, like, darkness elements to it. There's a little bit of, like, weird, like, body image stuff. Just, like, not great, like, highlighting descriptions of, like, like, they do some fasting and some, like, you know, kind of talk of, like, desirable beauty standards that I don't super agree with. So we'll see if that continues, but, you know, that might, dock my rating at the end down a little bit. I'm 65% of the way through Exciting Times. Again, enjoying this one. I think some stuff's gonna come to head soon, so excited about that. And then 58% of the way through A Song Below Water. So I'm pretty kind of equally far along in all 3 of them. I'm definitely gonna finish all 3 today, although it is already 3 o'clock, which is crazy. That's kind of my plans. I will let you know when I next finish one of those. Hi everyone, it's like 9:45 right now. I got very distracted by taking a nap and then making dinner and then having a long conversation with my family about capitalism and socialism, you know, as you do. So I am still working on those 3 books, and I do still want to finish them tonight if possible. As I said, it is 9:45, but I usually go to bed at like 11-ish, so we're gonna just read until I like literally need to go to sleep. But I am 72% of the way through the Lightness. That's when I was just reading, and I think I have about like 48 minutes or something left of the book according to Kindle. Then I have 79% of the way through Exciting Times. I only have like 25 minutes left of that one, so the next rotation I should finish that one out. And then 74% of the way through A Song Below Water, and I think at that one I have about 30 or 40 minutes left in. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading, and I will let you know when I finish these 3. I did it. And now it's time for bed. Hello, everyone. It's Monday morning. And I am back to let you know my thoughts on the 3 books that I finished last night. I finished them at like 12:30 or something. And that's when I filmed that tiny clip. But I wanted to wrap them up. I haven't posted my Netgalley reviews yet, but that's on my to-do list for today. But I did want to kind of give you my thoughts on the 3 other ones that I read. So the first one I read was Song Below Water by Bethany Seymour. This is out on June 2nd, according to Netgalley, which is updated as of this morning, published by Tortine, and I give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a really intriguing premise. I really enjoyed the characters as well. I thought both Tavia and Effie were really well drawn. I also found that the kind of setting of Portland was really interesting. I liked that it was this kind of alternate world, but based in our world. I don't actually read a ton of like urban fantasy or fantasy that takes place in our world. I will say the lore was a bit confusing. I kind of wanted it to be more explained or more I have my little alma mater mug here, drinking my coffee. Either more explained or kind of more in line with Greek mythology, because I kept looking up, you know, a lot of these kind of mythical beings that are included in the book are from Greek mythology, and so I was wondering, like, is this more connected? But I think it's very, Mora creates her own mythology, which is really fascinating. I just kind of wish I had understood a bit more about what each of the mythical creatures were, including this one who's called the Iloko, that many of the girls in Tabby and Effie's school are, and they are apparently a like Central African inspired monster, which was really cool. Like, I didn't know about them before, but the lore on like Google is not great, so I wish that Mora had kind of established what they are a little bit more, so that was more clear. Additionally, and this is also just a kind of more general me problem with like YA fantasy and pacing, is that I thought the book was just moving a little too quickly, especially towards the end. There's a part about like 65% of the way through where they are attending a protest that I thought was really interesting. I just got kind of confused as to what was happening because the story was moving so fast, and so I wish that the it had kind of been slowed down just a little bit to kind of be able to take everything in, and had more use that to kind of establish the lore a little bit more. I think it would have been a 5-star read for me. Finally, I did love the themes. I think I talked about previously that the sirens in this world are predominantly Black women, and so there's some really interesting discussion in this book about the silencing of Black women and using their Black women using their voices to kind of speak out against injustice, and how they're kind of continually silenced. I thought that was really, really interesting, really kind of an important discussion to be having in like YA literature. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I would highly recommend it. I think it's a solid read, and if you like YA fantasy, especially diverse YA fantasy, then you will definitely really like this one. The next one, spoiler, I actually gave all three of these books 4 stars. So the next one is The Lightness by Emily Temple. This is out by William Morrow, and this comes out on the 16th of June, again, as I'm filming this on May 4th. And I also gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So it's a debut novel written by Temple, who's a graduate of Middlebury College, which is not the college I attended, but was like my top pick until I found my college. And they just like put out, I don't know who the like creative writing team is there. I know they have Breadloaf, but I don't know how much undergraduates like interact with Breadloaf, but they must have a great creative writing professors there, because they're like 3 of my favorite authors, all graduated from Middlebury. Anyway, so this one was really, really enjoyable as well. So I think part of why I like this one so much is that it has a lot of things that I, as a reader, really enjoy, such as this unreliable narrator telling the story from an like undetermined point in the future. So they know everything that's going to happen, and they're kind of tagging you along. I also really like the vignette format and kind of interspersing the narrative with kind of other pieces of information. So there were some dictionary definitions in here, just a couple, as well as some kind of theology from Buddhism that was interesting. And then obviously some like flashbacks of kind of the narrator Olivia's life before she goes to the levitation center. They're also, I mean, I love a book that's set in kind of a wildernessy, nature-centric place, and I think this book definitely does that, in that it's set in this Buddhist meditation center in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So there is this kind of fear mongering that comes from the isolation and the loneliness that nature provides, which I always find to be quite fascinating. And then most importantly, I think I really enjoy books that are about the kind of female bonds that girls have with one another, especially during their kind of teenage years, which may or may not be good for them, but is definitely going to like help them grow into an adult person. I always find those stories really interesting as well, and this one definitely has some very charismatic girls who are very close knit, but definitely have some like secrets among them. So really enjoyed all of that as well. There were times though, so one of the authors that I really like who went to Middlebury is Emma Cline, and she published The Girls back in 2017, and I read that one last year for my book club that I do with 2 of my friends from college. And this book, The Lightness, really it sometimes felt very similar to the girls, like to the point that they were a little like too similar for my taste. I think I liked The Lightness better than the girls, but they are like very strong in theme. So if you don't like books that have kind of a bookish counterpart out there in the world, I'm not sure if, and you've read the girls, I'm not sure if you'll like The Lightness, because they do like strongly correlate with like these intense female relationships, men that are kind of weird, secretive, nature-centric places that are like kind of utopia-esque in nature, but like not really. But there's no cults in this one, so you know, if cults are your thing, this one probably also won't work for you. But yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me necessarily. I just like found a lot of repeated instances where it really read like the girls. And then finally, I think there was some interesting thematic elements in this one in terms of like beauty and beauty standards, and like she kept saying like beauty's supposed to hurt, isn't it? And that then became some kind of weird like mixed messaging in terms of like body image and body positivity, which I wasn't super into. Many times the protagonist, Olivia, like describes her body in a really like grotesque, unattractive way. And I kind of wish that had been like problematized a little bit more. Additionally, her mom makes these little like figurine mini things, and they're called like the fatties, and I was like, this is a little weird. So not great in terms of that like kind of body positivity thematic elements. And it is like critiqued a little bit within Olivia's character, but I kind of wish it had been critiqued more by like older Olivia, because while I think there's definitely like a strong tendency for younger girls to like think these types of things, I wish that like adult Olivia had critiqued them more in her younger self, which she didn't do as much. So that was the kind of main reason that I docked it down a star. But yeah, I would recommend this one if you like the things that I like, which I like just mentioned are all present in this book. However, I think that's like a relatively small number of people. I don't entirely know who else would like really like this book, but I really enjoyed it, gave it 4 stars. And then last but not least, we have another very Jenny book, which was Exciting Times, which I also gave 4 stars. This is out on June 2nd, published by Echo. And this one was blurbed as like being very Sally Rooney-esque, and I think that's very true. This basically is an exploration of relationships and how challenging and easy relationships can be. I think there's some really interesting commentary in here about how sometimes we, especially as like young people, gravitate towards relationships, particularly romantic sexual relationships, that are a lot easier than the potentially harder relationships that we have available to us, because the easiness allows us to like live without this fear of rejection and loss. And so I think that was something that Dolan handled really well, of exploring what makes us choose those relationships over other relationships that are probably in the long term more beneficial to us. I also just loved the characters. I thought they were very well drawn. They're not, and this is true of The Lightness as well, they're not likable characters, which I'm realizing now the characters for me do not have to be likable, but they have to be realistic, like someone that I know, especially if they're like young people, and this may be because a lot of young people aren't the most likable people. I'm gonna put it out there. I think there is something to be said about a character that makes decisions that you could see other people in your real life making, even if you don't like them for making that decision. So I think this is definitely true in Exciting Times. I wouldn't say any of the 3 characters are particularly likable, like you'd want to be friends with them, but you definitely understand their motivations and where they're coming from in making decisions. It also is very funny. There are a lot of moments that like made me actually chuckle out loud, which I think I've mentioned previously. And then in addition, there's some interesting commentary in terms of like socialism and class and colonialism and kind of all sorts of different things that you'd expect with someone who's from Ireland to like moving to Hong Kong. I think has allowed Dolan to explore kind of colonialism and oppression in very interesting ways. And I think all 3 of our main characters have kind of some interesting things to say about colonialism. In the end, Exciting Times was another favorite of mine. I won't say, and I was thinking about like what makes a 5-star book for me while I was reading all of these, because I really enjoyed all of them. And I think for a 5-star book, I do have to have this like kind of over exceeds my expectations element to it that all three of these books I think I'd say strongly met my expectations. So since none of them kind of went overboard, they didn't get that 5-star rating, I'm still grappling with that element. If you have any thoughts on why a book should get 4 stars or 5 stars, please let me know down in the comments below. I think that's everything for today. This has been a pretty chill vlog, hoping to get this up Monday, May 4th. We'll see if I actually do that. I have some things on my to-do list, as I said. But thank you so much for watching, if you have been watching this the whole time. I want to keep doing these vlogs. This was really fun. In fact, I actually am starting a springathon vlog today because it's the start of the springathon. So look out for that probably this coming weekend or early next week is part 1 of the springathon vlog. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'll talk to you next time, I guess.